The story that we have been told is that Ambassador Stevens was murdered as the result of a riot caused by a movie posted on YouTube. Before we look at who did it, let's focus on the movie for a moment, because everything, absolutely everything that we have been told about the making of this movie screams that it was a setup, a fraud, someone's black operation. The movie was not just one fraud, it was a whole series of frauds, each deeper and darker than the last. For example, the actors were handed a script for a movie called Desert Warrior. No movie called Desert Warrior was ever made. It was never meant to be made. The scripts the actors were handed were frauds, with nothing in them about the Prophet Muhammad. The actors were given lines that were nonsense. George is the messenger and the book is our constitution. And these lines were clearly designed to be dubbed over later. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. The actors insist they had no idea what was going on. They just thought that they were making an incredibly bad movie. The original version, the original fraud with the actors' original voices, never got made. According to Steve Klein, who claims he was the consultant on the film, after the filming was completed, a new version of the movie was then created. This second version was called The Innocence of Bn Laden and portrayed Bin Laden as a hero. This movie, Klein and others tell us, was actually completed. It was promoted, advertised in an Arab language newspaper, Arab World. A few posters were put up around Hollywood, and a showing was held in a seedy little theater in Hollywood. But Klein says that this movie, The Innocence of Bin Laden, was also a fraud, not intended to entertain or to inform, but was meant as a trap. The secret purpose, according to Klein, was to lure Bin Laden supporters to come out to see the film so that Klein could identify them and hand their names over to Homeland Security. And now it gets more mysterious and murky as we descend to a third level of fraud and deceit. Someone took this fraud of a movie, The Innocence of Bin Laden, and edited the movie down to a fraud of a trailer for a new movie supposedly called The Innocence of Muslims. But this trailer was a fraud because there is no movie called The Innocence of Muslims, just this trailer, promoting a movie that doesn't exist. The trailer portrays Muhammad as being a stupid, suicidal, gay, womanizing pedophile. No kidding, a gay, womanizing pedophile. But why would anyone make a trailer for a non-existent movie and fill it full of such ridiculously insulting crap and translate it into Arabic? They were not promoting a movie. There is no movie. They didn't translate the trailer into Arabic so that they could persuade or inform Muslims. This trailer was not for promotion or for information or for persuasion. It was, clearly and simply, intended as a provocation. And who the hell would want to provoke Muslim people worldwide in order to cause riots and murder? Well, the video created trouble for the Obama administration, but who would want to do such a thing? Well, let's see what we can learn about who made this fraudulent trailer, The Innocence of Muslims. We were told, and the public records show, that the movie was made by a guy named Sam Basile. He's being named as the principal perpetrator of these multiple frauds, but he's an even bigger fraud himself. We won't go into the fact that his name isn't Sam Basile, or that virtually everything he has told the press is a fraud, or that he's been arrested and sent to prison twice for fraud and once for making crystal meth, or that he used 14 different aliases in the fraud that led to his latest arrest and imprisonment for fraud. Given all of that fraud, it seems unlikely that this shadowy figure is even him. But forget all that mess. That's all small potatoes, small-time fraud. Here comes the really big fraud. In June of 2010, while Sam was sitting in prison for his third felony strike, suddenly he had a vision while in prison that he had been called by Christ to a life as an extremist Muslim-hating Christian, and that Jesus wanted him to write scripts for movies. First, he should write movies to trap lovers of Bin Laden, and then change them into trailers for non-existent Muhammad-hating movies. Sound ridiculous? Well, hey, I didn't write this story. And then Jesus or someone pulled out their wand and just as miraculously turned Sam into a determined, energetic, and unbelievably productive director and producer of full-length feature films. It is documented and attested to by various credible witnesses that 2 months out of prison, he had not only written the script, he'd raised the necessary funds, hired a director and assistant director, contracted with a film studio, hired film and sound crews, hired actors, arranged for the costumes and props, and had begun shooting. He then hired an editor, hired new actors to do the new voiceovers with the insulting dialogue. He edited the movie and sound with the new voices dubbed in insulting Muhammad. He contracted with a theater and had the film up on the screen in Hollywood in less than 10 months after leaving prison, with absolutely no previous experience in film. Unbelievable. Look, Sam Basile did not do all that. He's a fraud, a cardboard cutout. He's the fall guy, a distraction from the black operatives who actually did perpetrate this crime. Basile started running for cover pretty quickly, as all the frauds he had perpetrated began to be exposed. Reporters all over the country were beginning to smell a rat, to sense that they were being taken for a very sophisticated ride, and, on cue, in walks Steve Klein. Klein presents himself as a clown, ridiculous mustache, beer can in hand while he's being interviewed by Reuters. He told the Huffington Post that he was, quote, an unsophisticated James Bond operative, and that he was a consultant on the film. Somebody besides Sam Basile produced that film. There is no record that Sam ever before said a word against Muslims, or in favor of Christianity for that matter, while Klein has a history of making insanely vicious anti-Islamic remarks. It is Klein who says that the original movie, The Innocence of Bn Laden, was meant as an intelligence tool to locate and identify supporters of Bin Laden. He's the guy, he says, who waited outside the theater so that he could identify the people who attended and hand them over to Homeland Security or some other elements of U.S. intelligence. Klein tries deliberately to appear to be a low-level clown. And maybe he is. But neither Klein nor anyone else can explain why anyone would take this movie that started out admittedly as an intelligence operation and edit it down for a trailer, promoting a movie that doesn't exist, translate it into Arabic, and then promote it in Arab countries, timing it so as to provoke riots on September 11th, allowing Romney and his crew to claim that the country would not suffer such attacks if Romney were president. Witnesses in Benghazi said that at about 10 p.m. on Tuesday night, about 50 people gathered outside the U.S. consulate, which is actually just a house inside a walled compound. By all accounts, it was a peaceful and respectful demonstration. But then, according to the witnesses, at about 11:30 p.m. in Libya, 5:30 p.m. Washington time, 20 cars of heavily armed men with rocket-propelled grenades and assault rifles arrived and began an attack on the embassy, unleashing what one witness called a ridiculous amount of gunfire. The ambassador, his aide, and 2 former Navy SEALs working security were killed. The rest of the embassy staff fled to a safe house a mile away, pursued all the while by the attackers. It took about an hour and a half for security personnel to regain control of the consulate and another 3 hours to completely drive off the attackers, a U.S. official said. That would mean that the shooting didn't stop until 4 a.m. in Libya, 10 p.m. Washington time. At 7:51 p.m. Washington time, 2 hours before the shooting stopped, while confusion reigned, Reuters broke the story that one member of the embassy staff had been killed. 2 hours and 17 minutes after that, at 10:08 p.m., Hillary Clinton broke the still incomplete news that one American had been killed in the attack. Presumably, Clinton had reports from the CIA and embassy staff, but she was still unaware of the deaths of 3 other Americans. Now, I give you this web address because I couldn't believe this when I first saw it, so I don't expect you to believe it either. Romney launched his attack on this first White House response 2 minutes later. I'm outraged, says Romney, by the attacks on American diplomatic missions in Libya and Egypt and by the deaths of an American consulate worker in Benghazi. It's disgraceful that the Obama administration's first response was not to condemn attacks on our diplomatic missions, but to sympathize with those who waged the attacks. Hillary spoke at 10:08, And Romney responded at 10:10, 2 minutes later? How is that possible? It's insane. Obviously, they were waiting for this attack to occur. And how did they know? But 2 minutes? Are they stupid? Don't they see how suspicious that is? Well, yes and no. Yes, they are stupid, but it's the stupidity born of arrogance. They know the press is too afraid of them to point out their obvious complicity in the events of 9/11, and they've counted on the press to ignore the implications of this instantaneous response. And it gets worse. 10 days later, we get this from the Romney camp. A senior campaign official said that this attack on Obama, 2 minutes after Hillary's speech, was the unanimous recommendation of all of his advisors. All of Romney's foreign policy and political advisors were consulted about the White House remarks. All of them weighed in, and all of them unanimously recommended attacking the Obama administration's first response for sympathizing with those who waged the attacks. And they did all of this 2 minutes after the Obama administration's first response. How is that possible? Well, we've been here before. You can find your own way home on this one. But Eliot Cohen wants to help. Eliot Cohen, a senior Romney advisor, was a founding member of the Project for a New American Century. The guys, including Dick Cheney, who said we needed a new Pearl Harbor and then made 9/11 happen. And Cohen has sort of confessed to how it was that they were ready in 2 minutes. We were ready for a major debate on this. It just happened to blow up now. Well, it didn't just happen, did it? The outrageous video that sparked peaceful demonstrations didn't just happen. It was carefully and obviously orchestrated. People like Cohen wanted it to happen. Nobody thinks the attack on the embassy just happened. It was organized and complex and orchestrated to occur on 9/11. People like Eliot Cohen were waiting for it to happen. Richard Williamson, another member of the Romney team, was also waiting and hoping for such an event so that he could tell the news. There's a pretty compelling story that if you had a President Romney, you'd be in a different situation. Really, Richard, under President Romney, things would be different. I'm afraid they would be different.